Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and this is our weekly walkabout and garden tour where we take a look at everything that's looking lovely. This week has been warm and fairly dry. We got a little bit of a drizzle, but we're actually pretty dry in my area right now, so we could use a good rain. But some things are looking really good, and I think the garden looks great for this time of year, and I think you're going to enjoy it too. So let's start. Well, the geraniums and lobelia are looking rather lovely in these planters, and over here in the potager garden where I have my strawberries, that's where we are going to plant some of those hydrangeas that we just got. I'm very excited for that. And you can see the grass is still nice and lush and green right now. Now, I haven't gotten any second flush of bloom on these irises. These are supposed to be reblooming irises, but that seems to be a common experience amongst people who watch this channel. Many of you have shared your experience with reblooming irises, saying that they just don't rebloom for you because you don't have a long enough season. And I suspect that to be the case here as well. This fig tree is getting rather large. It's definitely very shrubby. I'm hoping next year for figs, you know that, right? I can't wait for some fruit. I love like a brie cheese with some figs. Oh, that would be just lovely if I could get that out of the garden. So we're going to come through and we're going to clean up these irises soon. They're really starting to die back and the foliage is looking kind of yucky. But this garden bed over here is still looking really lush and gorgeous. I love the way that it has filled out this fall. Just look at that beautiful mums. Now these mums are the perennial mums, and I keep getting asked the question, how do I have perennial mums? Well, these are perennial because I planted them early in the fall. When I first got them, I didn't wait until after planting them out in a pot and then try to get them out. So I probably planted them in like early September when I got them, and since then I have just transplanted them around the garden because they divide really easily. You can simply pull up a stem of it and move it to a new area. So I think this is really gorgeous with the little limes and the pink kind of hues that are coming out on this Rainbow Sensation Weigela are gorgeous, and all of that is mixing really well with the pinky winky hydrangea that's right here as well. We have no more white. These are just completely full color at this point. And the Half Moon Garden still has blooms on the Tian Shan 7 sunflowers, which are these tall white blooming shrubs that are being formed into small trees, and they have been amazingly fragrant and wonderful for the pollinators. And they are getting ready to go over. They're probably more than halfway done, but even after they are done blooming, they will start to send out these little tiny shoots that are kind of a pinky reddy orangey color. It depends on what you think, and they actually look like a flower themselves afterwards, and so it's a really nice fall interest. Don't they look beautiful in the sunlight? And I'm telling you, the scent on these in the evening is to die for, even during the day. I mean, they just smell so wonderful. And I love the kind of draping structure that they bring to the garden as well. And those will continue to get much taller and taller. Now I'm leaving the blooms on my little incredible hydrangeas that are on the back side of the Half Moon Garden because I think they look nice. They aren't too big, and they shouldn't have problems with a snow load because they are, fairly small. And then at the base we have these ladies' mantles, which still look really nice. I had cut those back and they reflush just perfectly. I may even divide some of those eventually. Now those are deer resistant, so that's something that I could use in the way back garden, which would be lovely. And I've gotten a lot of questions from people about, could I plant a hydrangea back there, or could I plant my hostas back there? And unfortunately, I don't want to carry like my deer spray back there. I use liquid fence on my garden to keep the deer out, and because it's on a hillside, it just seems a little too dangerous to me. So I have to go with those plants that are deer resistant already. So I have a little bit of a limited palette back there, but I still love it. We're actually getting a late bloom on the Boom Chocolate geranium. So this is like its fourth bloom. I just keep cutting them back when they get older, but that has just been a really, really beautiful plant in the garden. I highly recommend it. It's getting small tinges of red around the outsides of the geranium as well. So it's almost more of a purple than a black. We're starting to see a little bit of color on this, which is the Autumn Jubilee 9 bark. So that will continue to lighten up and change color over time. Still haven't come through and divided up this lemon jade sedum right here, but it is beautiful. It's just kind of glowing in front of that rainbow sensation, and they're highlighting the understory under the canopy of this purple plum, which is the thundercloud purple plum. The lungwort is so big at this time of year, and I usually just leave it, but I have noticed a little bit of powdery mildew because of the dry weather that we've been having. So again, I'm just hoping for a little bit of rain. Isn't this pink diamond hydrangea lovely? That has been a great addition to the garden. I just added that last year, and I'm just thrilled with the height that it provides in this section of the garden. I am really looking forward to this smooth hydrangea right here growing on as well, to provide a little bit more height and some more blooms in this area. That will be gorgeous. And the shade garden looks lovely, but I will say that we are starting to lose some of the blooms on these scabiosa. They are starting to go over. And if you've never seen powdery mildew before, I will show you. I'm getting a little bit on this phlox right here. It's like these little white, it looks kind of like powder, which is probably why it was named powdery mildew, right? But this garden bed is still looking nice, and I've been impressed with it this year and how well it did. Of course, I feel like every year we have kind of weird and wacky weather, but this year seemed to be very weird and wacky. Look at this pinky winky hydrangea. Isn't this gorgeous? This one looks like it's got even deeper tones in it, and I think it's because it gets a little bit more sun than the other one. I'm not really sure, but I just think it's absolutely stunning. I'm hoping next year that the blooms on it get even larger. Such amazing fall color on the panicle hydrangeas. And I'm still leaving on the brown panicles from this oak leaf hydrangea, but you can see that the leaves on it are starting to turn. So we should get some color on these. The more sun they're in, the better for fall color. So it'll be interesting to see how they all do this year. They all were very different last year depending on where they sat in the garden. And the woodland garden is looking really beautiful too, I think, although the edges of some of the hostas are looking a bit tore up. That's just kind of to be expected this time of year. I am enjoying these late blooms on this little haughty hydrangea right here. They are brightening up this corner of the garden. And I just got a bloom on my Grandma Blessings rose, which has just been struggling this year because of the drought that we got earlier in the year. I don't know, and now all of a sudden we're actually going to get some more blooms potentially on it, so that's fun. Just didn't really get a whole lot of color out of it this year for whatever reason. And you can see the moles and the voles are kind of tearing up the ground around this garden bed in the middle here, but they're doing nothing to hurt this hydrangea, which is looking beautiful with the Brunnera. Just look how bright that pink is. I really hope that this does well in this spot and that it gets enough sunlight to really thrive. Now I have had to come through because of how dry it's been and give some water to these hydrangeas back here. Given that it's their first year, that's kind of to be expected. Man, this tassel fern got large this year. Been so happy with that. I think next year the one next to it is going to just really take off as well. The colors are just, they're starting to kind of glow. Everything turns these jewel tones and earthy tones, and they all start to kind of meld and blend together this time of year, and it's just gorgeous. Here we have the firelight hydrangea, which is shining next to the penstemon. Isn't that gorgeous? That is such a deep, deep color. Next year I expect it to grow a couple more feet in height for sure. And I can hardly believe it, but we're getting an amazing flush of blooms on this April night salvia right here. I've cut this back twice this year, at least twice. And the pollinators just love that too, and it looks gorgeous next to that firelight hydrangea, doesn't it? So pretty. Now the hydrangeas that are between these arborvitae over here, they could use some water, and I don't think we have any rain in our forecast, so I may need to give them some water tomorrow for sure, because they're looking a little bit droopy this time of day. And yeah, they looked a little bit droopy yesterday too, so I think they're just starting to struggle a little bit because of the dryness of the soil. But no problem, we'll take care of that. And this garden bed is just immersed in color right now. Oh, I wish the sun wasn't quite so far behind me. Let me see if I can back up so I don't put my shadow and you can kind of see this whole border. I've got a lot of questions after my last garden tour as to what type of sedum is in this garden bed. And that sedum is just regular old sedum autumn joy, and it is getting darker and darker as the weeks go on. And then we have that geranium kind of draping throughout, which is the Roseanne geranium, and the firelight hydrangea. And the small tree up above it here, this is a redbud. So I'm expecting to see some lovely blooms on this one next year, because it sure has put on a lot of growth. Really awesome. The heuchera are still just providing a really wonderful splash of color in this garden bed as well. So you see just a wonderful mix of purples and pinks, but they're not the light colored purples and pinks, they're more of the deep rich tones, which I absolutely love. It doesn't wash out in the sunshine like some of the lighter colors do. And you can see we're getting more and more blooms on this daisy here. This is the Sweet Daisy Birdie Daisy. And this is its second flush of blooms after I cut it back all the way. We're continuing to get some blooms on this little tiny butterfly bush right here. I believe this is the purple chrysalis butterfly bush. It's so, so tiny. And then we'll just swing the camera down this way so you can get a glimpse at all of the orange color from the mums that is in this garden bed. They are really starting to pop. It definitely makes it feel like it's going to be October. There's something about October and the color orange. They just seem to go hand in hand, don't they? Look how nice and bright that is. And the vanilla strawberry hydrangea no longer has any vanilla in it. It is all strawberry. But it looks beautiful. It is starting to turn brown on some of the panicles, which is fine. That's what happens this time of year. But it's holding quite a bit of color, and I expect to see the color on it at least for another couple of weeks. These incredible hydrangeas right now are just glowing in the sunshine, aren't they? Lighting up from within. And back behind it we see our hydrangea, or not our hydrangea, our hibiscus. That's the evening rose hibiscus, similar to what I have at the end of the pool. Still putting out a few more blooms, so it has been over a month that has been blooming. Really, really long bloom cycle on those. And over here we have our pollinators really enjoying the neon sedum. This neon sedum is very bright compared to the little hottie hydrangea it's next to. Awesome color. We got a couple of blooms on our mock orange right now. Every year we get a couple of blooms on that shrub, and then kind of climbing up and through the shrub you see the white on this garden mum. And this is just a perennial garden mum. It got really leggy this year, and I got a lot of questions from people about, don't I cut back my mums? And yes, I do. But what happened was they got like lots of extra moisture, I think, in August with that uncharacteristic rain that we had. And so they just really shot up. Look at the color on this very white hydrangea. That is magnificent. I'm definitely going to be harvesting some of these blooms. They are gorgeous. So here we'll just kind of look back again at the long border and all of the color in it. It really is beautiful, you guys. I think the limelight and the strawberry Sunday hydrangea look really beautiful together. They definitely complement each other with the colors that they have. And you can see these neon sedum also are nice and bright within the border. I was so happy to get all of my alliums deadheaded. I think they look so much better. We're actually getting a couple of new shoots on this Japanese maple. It's interesting. And still plenty of color on the good old quick fire hydrangea, which is what this one is. It looks kind of like a tower in the garden. But I can't bring myself to clip off that second story of it. And I really like the height, so I'm just leaving it and enjoying it. And we have lots of pollinators down here enjoying the lavender. And this is its second flush of blooms. We're still establishing our roots with this Let's Rave hydrangea, or Let's Dance Rave hydrangea, but you can see that it's a little droopy this time of day. I just watered it yesterday though, so I know it doesn't need water today. All right, let's check out the front garden. So this is another hydrangea with which I will be harvesting some of the blooms. They are absolutely gorgeous. They are nice and big. They're starting to turn kind of that papery feel, which lets you know that they are ready to go and be harvested. You could put them in a couple inches of water and just let them soak it up, and then they will dry right in a bouquet for you. And they make a gorgeous bouquet while they're drying. We have some buds that are happening on this azalea, which is great. The deer munched a lot on this one this year, but I think it looks like it's done well, and hopefully we will get those blooms and they won't eat them off during the winter. Now I did come through and replaced another boxwood in this boxwood hedge here. So this is a boxwood ball that was from one of the planters in the backyard. And that's just replacing some of the ones that looked a little yellow. I still have a couple back there towards the back that are not doing that great. So we'll see how they do next year, and maybe I'll have to replace those as well. But that's just one thing I always keep in mind when I'm clearance shopping is boxwoods. If you ever see boxwoods on the clearance table at your local nursery and you like boxwoods, it's always good to have some on hand, because sometimes you get a boxwood that just needs to be replaced and might not be doing so great. So we have lots of color in this garden bed from the mums right now. And as you can see, I have emptied out the container plantings. Kind of cleaned those up for now. The Gara is starting to have its flowers be spent, but the foliage still remains a beautiful color, and the form of those little stems that just stick out and weep are gorgeous. So I'm leaving them for now. In terms of cutting things back, you know, this time of year, I just kind of go at it slowly. Salvia is one of the ones that I do tend to start to cut back this time of year as I can. You'll see I still have some in this garden bed, but that's just because I haven't gotten to them in this garden bed yet. Now we do have some mums that haven't bloomed in this garden bed right back here, so that's going to bring us a little bit later color. And I cannot recall what color those were. I planted these last year. Maybe they're pink, I'm not sure. But let's take a look at my so-called pumpkin mums, because I feel like that's what they look like, is these ginormous pumpkins. Isn't that a statement this time of year? My goodness, you guys, look at that color. Now as these have opened and as they age, they start to turn a little bit lighter of an orange. So it's definitely a gorgeous tapestry of orange colors right now, isn't it? I love it. It's like a beacon welcoming people into the driveway, right? Over here in this garden bed, it still continues to be one of my favorite spots because it just looks good so much of the year. This is also just the sedum autumn joy, and on either sides we have the bobo hydrangeas. And while many panicles may look alike to people who, you know, aren't familiar with them, once you start to get familiar with the different varieties that are out there, you can see some of the subtle differences in the flower form, the flower color, and just how they grow overall, how dense the blooms are. And these are just some of my favorites. They aren't deep and dark, but they have depth of color. At the same time, they're a little bit frillier because they have smaller petals on them. But they mingled just perfectly with the sedums, I think. And then the backdrop of that oak leaf hydrangea, we'll take a look at that closer from the other side, because the leaves on that are starting to change. They're starting to give us a little bit of color, which is fantastic, because fall color is so fun. It's so important to me to have things in the garden that give interest all throughout the year. Every single season, I try to have something that is blooming or provides something for the eye to enjoy. And I think this spot is looking lovely now too, as we get that deep saturation of the mum color. Isn't that pretty? These are such a beautiful color. And these will last for a couple more weeks now, because they really are just starting to open, and there's lots of buds all over them. Usually I do garden tours once a week until, I want to say, around November, even sometimes close to December. It depends really a lot on the weather. But I do these because I just want people to be able to see my garden throughout the year and to be able to see what's possible in this zone, because I think a lot of people feel like the gardening season has already ended. as we get towards Labor Day, but really there's so much season that's left. So hopefully you can see how the leaves on this oak leaf hydrangea are starting to change. And these will continue to push out more and more color as it cools down. We did have some really cool weather, and then like I said, we've had some weather in like the 70s and 80s these last few days, and some dryness. So at this point we're just trying to, you know, get back to our normal fall weather, which is more like 60s and 70s this time of year. And I haven't changed out much over here at all. I do have my pretty little red mum that is down over here, along with some of our coleus. But for the most part, I haven't quite changed all of this out yet. And I don't know that I will. I went to Lowe's the other day and their stock was really bad. I'm gonna have to go to our local nursery and see what they have in terms of like ornamental kale and things that look really nice throughout the fall and even into the winter. Look at the colors on this bloom here. It's so striking. And then we have all of these sedums that are blooming, and this is just a variegated sedum that I got from my sister a long time ago. So I don't even know what it's called, but it's pretty. And I've been keeping watering over here some of the transplants that we have. As you can see, the blue hosta that we transplanted could use some more water, but it's fine. It's going to do absolutely fine. Oftentimes you'll lose some leaves during a transplant, but that's just normal. And I think that the hydrangea is looking beautiful out here as well. That's the Let's Dance Can Do variety. And this area gets, you know, morning sunlight, and then during the afternoon, during the hot part of the day, it gets shade from this Japanese maple that's up above it. So I have come through and given some more water to our transplants. I think they're all doing good. I'm really not worried about any of them. And indeed, even over here in the new garden bed, things are looking good. And it's kind of exciting just to have this over here. You'll see things that have changed significantly over the last couple of weeks between myself getting some of these things planted out in the garden bed, and also the neighbor putting up the privacy fence because they're looking at getting a pool over there. So the views are changing. Kind of wonder what they might actually paint that fence or stain it. We'll see. Everything's just happy still, doing their thing. And our limelight hydrangeas that we planted over here are doing good still. I'm really happy with the way that they turned out and how they look in their new space. Yeah, that's great. It's a great addition to this area. It's funny when I think about it this time of year and how excited I get for what will next year bring. And that's what one of the things that I love about gardening is it always gives you something to look forward to. Like, what will it look like next spring or next summer? And you see we get a little bit of fall color on this viburnum. The one in the back garden hasn't started turning yet, but this one definitely has. And this will get kind of a deep burgundy color. At least that's the color the other one does. That is the same variety. And then we also have this variegated sage, which is a perennial. This is already down to zone 5. I'm hoping this will come back because it could get bigger and provide some nice flowers next year. But it's done really well in this garden bed. Well, that about wraps it up for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this garden tour. And I hope you guys are doing well and enjoying some cooler weather in your areas. And we'll see you next time.